Stranded 1,000 miles from home with only $7 to his name. In his 20s, Bob Lotich was drowning in debt. That's when he cried out to God and wound up reaching a level of financial freedom beyond his wildest dreams.
Make ends meet.
Podcaster and financial coach Bob Lotich wasn't always an expert on finances. In his 20s, he was in debt and living paycheck to paycheck. Desperate for help, he cried out to God for wisdom. Bob soon discovered a biblically inspired formula for financial freedom, a plan which allowed him to get out of debt, pay off his home, and give away $1 million by the age of 40. In his book, Simple Money, Rich Life, Bob shares how you can increase your savings, earnings, and giving so you can move forward financially, regardless of your income.
Please welcome to the 700 Club, Bob Lotich. Bob, it's great to have you with us.
Terry, it is an honor to be here. Excited to chat.
Well, you take us back to that time in your early 20s when you were stranded 1,000 miles from home, $7 to your name. How did you wind up in that situation?
Yeah, well, I was a mess financially. I didn't realize it. I was finally coming to grips with it. And God kind of used that moment. That was kind of my breaking point moment where everything began to shift. Because prior to that, I thought I knew everything about money, but I clearly didn't. And so that was kind of my turning point moment.
There came a point where you cried out to God for wisdom. What did you discover?
Yeah. So, I mean, in that, like the Lord just began revealing to me that the Bible talked about money, which was fascinating. My mind was blown by that. Just the fact that the Bible had all this wisdom that was still relevant for us today. And so that's where it began for me. And then there was a heart change because so much of what we do with money involves our heart. And that's such an important part. And so those were two big things that began to shift for me.
Your wife, Linda, wrote this book with you. She adds a lot to it. You're very different personalities. It's a fun book to read. You know, sometimes books about money can be pretty dry. How did the discovery change you and your wife's lives?
Yeah. No, she definitely added a bright spot to the book. And that was part of the goal. How do we make something that's actually enjoyable to read? Yeah, this whole thing, it's just been revolutionary for both of us because, you know, I mean, Jesus talks so much about money, and the common denominator that I see is it always comes back to our heart. And so regardless of, you know, if you're doing great financially or you're doing terrible, like there's always heart work that needs to be done. And that's been the case for Linda and I. Like we've constantly had, you know, God's just continued to do work on our hearts and just get us in a more and more healthy place financially.
Well, you were laid off from your job. You followed what you call the Never 100 rule. Will you explain what that is and how it can help anyone improve their finances?
Sure. Yeah. So we realized that we were spending too much money and that we were going backwards financially. And we also had observed like Mike Tyson, who had, you know, accumulated or earned about $400 million over a 7-year period and then blew it all. And then we observed that it's like over 50% of NBA and NFL players are broke after they retire. And so clearly it's not about how much money you earn, it's about what you do with it. And so in that, we kind of created a rule for ourselves because we found that we were spending way more than we were earning. And we're like, all right, this is the problem. We're not going forward because we're spending more than we earn. So we made a rule for ourselves that we called the Never 100 rule, where we would, to the absolute best of our ability, never spend more than 100% of what we earn in a given month. And so if we earn $10,000, $1,000, or $100 in a month, we never want to spend 100% of that. We want to be taking some of that every single month and giving it and saving it.
Well, you say earn all you can, save all you can, and give away all you can. Why is giving so essential to healthy finances and to a healthy life?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, as Christians, I think we know that this is an important part. I mean, Jesus said it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I, for one, like just thought that he was always confused. Like I didn't believe him that it actually was more blessed. But as we've kind of brought our lives into more of a healthy financial balance and giving has become more of a priority for us, like we now realize that like what Jesus said was right. Like it actually is more blessed to give. And so in all that, we've just found a really, really healthy balance. And I think this is what so many people miss out on. They think that the key is just earning more money, that's the thing. But really, it's that balance, that holistic balance that God designed for us to be giving and giving liberally. And that's where the peace, that's where the joy comes from.
Well, speaking of balance, talk a little bit about your perspective on credit cards, how people can actually use them to help themselves get ahead financially.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, credit cards are a very dangerous tool. I often describe them as similar to a chainsaw. It's like you don't want to give your 8-year-old son a chainsaw and tell him to go out in the yard. It's like it's a dangerous tool. We have to be aware of that. But within that, it still is a financial tool that can be used. And so when I have a tree that falls in the backyard, I so much rather would have a chainsaw than have an axe and trying to chop it down. It's just a better tool for the job. And the fact is that, we spent 7 years not using credit cards because we couldn't use them responsibly. But once we reached a point that we could, there's a lot of advantages. There's a lot of benefits to using a good credit card. And so they've been a helpful tool on our financial journey.
Talk a little bit about some of the other money-saving tips in your book, because it's filled with them.
Yeah, well, I think one of the important things that not enough people understand is that paying attention to where you are spending your money is so critically important. And so many people miss this because it's like, I'm just going to spend my money. Whatever happens at the end of the month is the end of the month. But when you're doing that, it's like you're just floating downstream and you're not putting any intentionality behind what you're doing. And from a stewardship perspective, if we go back to the parable of the talents and kind of view everything that we've been given as an entrustment from God, good managers know what they're responsible for. Like, it's just a simple fact. And so we want to manage what God has entrusted us with. We need to know what's going on. We need to know what's going on in our financial situation. So simply paying attention, using, there's a lot of different apps that can help you do this, like Personal Capital or Mint.com. There's a lot of different apps that can help you actually pay attention, see what's going on. And that's a great first step for a lot of people.
It really is. And the book is filled with so much more than we have time to get to today. But I want our viewers to know it's packed with money-saving tips. It's worth the investment. It's called Simple Money, Rich Life. And it is available wherever books are sold. Bob, thank you so much for being with us today. Great to visit with you.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate it.
Wise counsel, and I
Very
think you
wise
would agree
counsel.
with everything
Yes,
he's
I
had
would.
to say. Yes.
Yeah, always live within your means.
Yes.
And stay out of debt.
And save.
And save.
And
Pay
save.
yourself.
Yes.
That's what I call
Exactly.
it. And
Time
yes,
for-
saving is sometimes optional. Pay yourself.
Yes. Yeah, on a regular basis. Exactly.